Quorum is present and the House is ready for business. The House will now advance to the second order of business, prayer by the chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today will be led in prayer by House Pastor Tom Doherty, and then led in the Pledge of Allegiance by House Page Vance Lind, who is a senior at Oakley High School. Will our guests in the gallery please rise?
Today's quote is by Ezra Taft Benson. He says, "If you really want to receive joy and happiness, then serve others with all your heart. Lift their burden, and your own burden will be lighter." The passage of scripture is from the Apostle Paul, chapter 5 of Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians, verse 11. Encourage each other and build one another up. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray you would give all of us a servant's heart. Help us to serve in a way that lifts people up, that encourages people. Lord, we all have ups and downs in life, and sometimes it's hard to travel the road of life when we're discouraged or even feel defeated. I pray, O Lord, that you would encourage each person listening today to build each other up and to be there for them in the good, in the bad, and the ugly situations of life. Dear Lord, may we not get bogged down with the worries and burdens of life, but may we take them on with you leading us, O Lord. Each one of us, O Lord, has an opportunity to breathe a positive message into others' lives, a message of hope, a message of encouragement. We are so blessed, dear Lord. Thank you for this great assembly of leaders. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The House will now advance to the third order of business, approval of the journal. The House is at the third order.
In the House of Representatives, February 10, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have read and approved the House Journal of the 31st Legislative Day and recommend same be adopted as corrected. Moved by Cheney, seconded by Gannon.
You've heard the motion to approve the journal of the 31st Legislative Day. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The journal has been approved. The House will now advance to the fifth order of business, report of standing committees. The House is at the fifth order.
In the House of Representatives, February 10, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have printed House Concurrent Resolution 32 and House Bills 568, 569, 570, 571, 572, 573, 574, 575, and 576. Cheney, Chairman.
House Concurrent Resolution number 32 will be filed for the second reading. House Bills 568, 569, 570, 571, 572, 573, and 574 will all be referred to the Transportation and Defense Committee, and House Bill 575 and 576 will be referred to the Local Government Committee.
February 10, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have enrolled House Bill 454. Cheney, Chairman.
House Bill 454 will be signed by the Speaker, then sent to the Senate for the signature of the Senate President.
February 9, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on State Affairs, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 514 and recommend that it do pass. Crane, Chairman.
House Bill 514 will be filed for the second reading.
February 9, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on State Affairs, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 531 and report it back without recommendation. Crane, Chairman.
House Bill 531 will be filed for second reading.
February 10, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Revenue and Taxation, report that we've had under consideration Senate Bill 1249 and recommend that it do pass. Harris, Chairman.
Senate Bill 1249 will be filed for the second reading.
February 10, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Health and Welfare, report that we have had under consideration House Bills 515 and 516 and recommend that they do pass. Wood, Chairman.
House Bills 515 and 516 will be filed for the second reading.
February 10, 2022, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Education, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 533 and recommend that it do pass. Clow, Chairman.
House Bill 533 will be filed for the second reading.
February 10, 2022. Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on State Affairs, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 567 and report it back to be placed on general orders. Crane, Chairman.
House Bill 567 will be placed on general orders. Without objection, the House will now advance to the seventh order of business, motions, memorials, and resolutions. The House is at the seventh order. Gentleman from District 12.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for a privilege.
The gentleman has the floor for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House, it's my privilege. Help me please welcome guests from the Pacific Northwest Economic Region. Today we have with us Consul General Mia Yen with her offices in Seattle, Washington. We have the Penwar CEO, Matt Morrison, who a lot of us know well from Washington State. We have the Penwar President, Richard Gottfried, member of the Legislative Assembly in Alberta. We have Penwar Vice President, Senator Mia Costello from Alaska Senate. And the good senator from Montana, Senator Mike Cuff. It's always good to see you again, sir. We also have Transportation and Infrastructure Co-Chair Bruce Agnew from Washington State. And of course, the leader of the group for Idaho is our own Penwar Council Coordinator, Dr. Gloria Tortorica-Guena. Please help me welcome this good group to our state today. Thank you for being here. Speaker, thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome to the House Gallery. Gentleman for 7.
For personal privilege,
For introduction.
I would like the House to welcome Brian Joyce, who has his government class here from Council, and some of those young ladies in that class are going to be playing in the state tournament next weekend, playing for my big sister. So, good luck.
Welcome to Gallery and go Lumberjacks, right? Okay. The House is at the seventh order.
In the House of Representatives, House Resolution 8 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and obligating funds from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund for child care infrastructure. House Resolution 9 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and obligating funds from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund for workforce training. House Resolution 10 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the Department of Corrections request for $112.4 million from the Permanent Building Fund for construction of a new women's prison. House Resolution 11 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the obligation of $100,000 in ARPA funds for the extradition transport costs of the Commission of Pardons and Paroles. House Resolution 12 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the obligation of $10 million in ARPA funds for the wastewater improvement needs of the Idaho Department of Correction. House Resolution 13 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the obligation of $6 million in ARPA funds to the Domestic Violence Council to offset costs caused by increased demand for victim services as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. House Resolution 14 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the obligation of $1 million in ARPA funds to the Idaho Department of Corrections for the costs of managing its facilities as a result of COVID-19. House Resolution 15 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the obligation of $19,990,500 in ARPA funds to the Idaho Supreme Court to offset costs of the court's increased reliance on technology brought about by the negative economic impacts of COVID-19. House Resolution 16 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the Idaho State Police request for $7.1 million for purchase of a new H-124 Airbus helicopter and hoist system, construction of a new hangar, and establishment of an air support division. House Resolution 17 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the Department of Corrections request for $37.6 million from the Permanent Building Fund for improvements to the medical annex at the Idaho State Correctional Institution, and House Resolution 18 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, a House resolution stating findings of the House of Representatives and supporting the Department of Corrections request for $12 million from the Permanent Building Fund for construction of a new reentry center in Pocatello.
House Resolutions 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 will all be referred to the Judiciary Rules Administration Committee for printing. The House will now advance to the 8th order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 8th order for 15 minutes. It's a list. Clerk may read.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 577 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to free exercise of religion, amending Chapter 4, Title 73, Idaho Code, by the addition of a new Section 73405 Idaho Code to define a term, to provide certain requirements regarding a coronavirus vaccine requirement and religious exemptions, to provide for a claim against an employer in certain instances, to provide for attorney's fees, and to provide that certain employment practices shall remain illegal, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 578 by Business Committee, an act relating to the Required Immunization Liability Act, amending Title 44 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Chapter 28 Title 44 Idaho Code to provide a short title, to define a term, to provide that employers shall be liable for required immunizations, and to provide that nothing shall preclude an employer from obtaining certain insurance, declaring an emergency. House Bill 579 by Business Committee, an act relating to employee personal medical information, amending Chapter 2, Title 44, Idaho Code, by the addition of a new Section 44203 Idaho Code to provide for the limited disclosure of an employee's personal medical information, amending the heading of Chapter 2, Title 44, Idaho Code, and declaring an emergency. House Bill 580 by Business Committee, an act relating to easements, amending Section 55603 Idaho Code to provide for easements in gross of a commercial character and declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 581 by Business Committee, an act relating to the Employee Medical Information Protection Act, amending Title 44 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Chapter 28 Title 44 Idaho Code to provide a short title to specify that employers in the state of Idaho shall not engage in discrimination against certain persons, to clarify terms, to provide a penalty, providing severability, and declaring an emergency. House Bill 582 by Business Committee, an act relating to business building codes, amending Section 541016 Idaho Code to provide an exemption for nonprofit electrical installation, to provide correct terminology and to make technical corrections, amending Section 542602 Idaho Code to provide an exemption for nonprofit plumbing installation, to provide correct terminology, to make technical corrections, amending Section 545002 Idaho Code to provide an exemption for nonprofit HVAC installation and declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 583 by Business Committee, an act relating to digital assets, amending Title 28 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Chapter 53 Title 28 Idaho Code to provide a short title, to provide scope, to define terms, to provide for classification of digital assets, to provide for purchase and sale of digital assets, and to provide for perfection by possession or control, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 584 by Resources and Conservation Committee, an act relating to Anderson Ranch Dam, providing legislative intent regarding the Anderson Dam Raise project and declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 585 by Resources and Conservation Committee, an act relating to vessels, amending Chapter 70, Title 67 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 677013A Idaho Code to provide for additional vessel titles, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 586 by Resources and Conservation Committee, an act relating to fish and game, amending Section 361401 Idaho Code to revise provisions regarding violations, to provide for certain reporting and to make technical corrections, amending Section 361402 Idaho Code and to provide a correct code reference, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 587 by Resources and Conservation Committee, an act relating to the Department of Lands, amending Section 58104A Idaho Code to revise provisions regarding the Land, Mineral, and Grazing Division of the Department and to make technical corrections, amending Chapter 1, Title 58 Idaho Code by the by the addition of a new section 58156 Idaho Code to provide for certain price comparisons and to provide for an ombudsman, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 588 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to wildland firefighters, amending Section 591603 Idaho Code to provide for wildland firefighter differential pay, amending Section 675309D Idaho Code to provide for wildland firefighter differential pay and to make technical corrections and declaring an emergency. House Bill 589 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to the public employee retirement system, amending Section 591303 Idaho Code to provide police officer member status for juvenile detention officers, juvenile probation officers, and adult misdemeanor probation officers, to make a technical correction, declaring an emergency, and providing an effective date. House Bill 590 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to workers' compensation, repealing Section 72404 Idaho Code relating to lump sum payments, amending Chapter 4, Title 72 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 72404 Idaho Code to provide for settlement agreements and lump sum payments, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 591 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to the Industrial Commission, amending Section 12102 Idaho Code to provide for the Judicial Council to name certain candidates for the Industrial Commission, amending Section 72501 Idaho Code to provide for the Judicial Council to name candidates for the Industrial Commission and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 592 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to the Idaho Workforce Housing Fund, amending Chapter 62, Title 67 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 676227 Idaho Code to provide legislative purpose, amending Chapter 62, Title 67 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 676228 Idaho Code to establish the Idaho Workforce Housing Fund and to provide for allocation of funds, amending Chapter 62, Title 67 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 676229 Idaho Code to establish the Idaho Workforce Housing Advisory Commission to provide for membership of the Commission and to provide for certain powers and duties of the Commission and declaring an emergency. House Bill 593 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act related to workers' compensation, amending Chapter 4, Title 72 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 72452 Idaho Code to provide that COVID-19 vaccination-related accidents or injuries shall be compensable and declaring an emergency. House Bill 594 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to state officers and employees, amending Section 591603 Idaho Code to provide for non-classified employees of the Executive Department, to revise provisions regarding the State Board of Education and to provide correct code references, amending Section 675301 Idaho Code to revise a provision regarding State of Idaho employees, amending Section 675302 Idaho Code to revise definitions, amending Section 675303 Idaho Code to provide for non-classified employees, to revise provisions regarding certain educational employees, and to remove a provision regarding positions established under federal grants, repealing Section 675305 Idaho Code relating to employees hired prior to a certain date, amending Section 675308 Idaho Code to provide for classified and non-classified employees, amending Section 675309 Idaho Code to provide for classified and non-classified employees and applicants and to remove a provision regarding certain appointments, amending Section 675314 Idaho Code to provide that the Division of Human Resources may negotiate certain fees, amending Section 675315 Idaho Code to provide for problem-solving procedures and classified and non-classified employees, amending Section 675317 Idaho Code to provide for classified and non-classified employees, amending Section 675328 Idaho Code to provide for classified and non-classified employees and Fair Labor Standard Act requirements, amending Section 675332 Idaho Code to provide for classified and non-classified employees, amending Section 675333 Idaho Code to provide for classified and non-classified employees, amending Section 675342 Idaho Code to provide for non-classified employees, amending Section 675342A Idaho Code to provide for non-classified employees, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 595 by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to non-classified state officers and employees, amending Section 591603 Idaho Code to revise provisions regarding compensation increases and to provide for retention bonuses, amending Section 675309B Idaho Code to provide for compensation adjustments based on internal equity, external factors, and performance, and to make technical corrections, amending Section 675309D Idaho Code to provide for compensation adjustments, retention bonuses, and non-performance pay, and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 596 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, an act relating to motor vehicles, repealing Section 492415 Idaho Code relating to liability of motor owner to guest and declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 597 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, an act relating to motor vehicles, amending Section 49328 Idaho Code to revise provisions regarding reinstatement of a driver's license that has been suspended for failure to pay for an infraction penalty and to make technical corrections, amending Chapter 15, Title 49 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 491505 Idaho Code to provide for suspension of a driver's license and privileges for failure to pay an underlying traffic infraction penalty and declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 598 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, an act relating to the Genetic Testing Privacy Act, amending Section 398303 Idaho Code to provide a certain exception regarding DNA analysis and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 599 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, an act relating to the Idaho Child Abduction Prevention Act, amending Title 32 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Chapter 19 Title 32 Idaho Code to provide a short title to define terms, to provide for cooperation and communication among courts, to provide for action for abduction prevention measures, to provide for jurisdiction in certain child custody actions, to provide for the content requirements of a certain child custody petition, to provide for factors to determine risk of abduction, to establish provisions and measures to prevent abduction, to authorize a warrant to take physical custody of a child in certain instances, to provide for the duration of an abduction prevention order, to provide for the uniformity of application and construction, and to provide for a relation to the Electronic Signatures and Global and National Commerce Act, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 600 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, an act relating to the Judicial Council, amending Section 12101 Idaho Code to revise provisions regarding membership of and appointments to the Judicial Council and to make technical corrections, amending Section 12102 Idaho Code to revise a provision regarding a certain duty of the Judicial Council and to make technical corrections, amending Section 74104 Idaho Code to provide for certain records of the Judicial Council, amending Section 481509 Idaho Code to provide a correct code reference, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 601 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to the Idaho Residential Care or Assisted Living Act, amending Section 393316 Idaho Code to provide for in-person visitation rights and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 602 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to the Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology Interstate Compact, amending amending Chapter 29, Title 54, Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 542918A Idaho Code to provide for the Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology Interstate Compact, amending Section 542912 Idaho Code to provide for the submission of fingerprints and to make technical corrections, amending Section 542913 Idaho Code to provide for the submission of fingerprints and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. House Bill 603 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to hospital districts, amending Chapter 13, Title 39 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 391358 Idaho Code to provide for lease or sale of hospital district property, amending Chapter 13, Title 39 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 391359 Idaho Code to provide for conveyance of hospital district property to a nonprofit corporation, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date. And House Bill 604 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to immunization, amending Chapter 23, Title 67 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 672359 Idaho Code to provide that a person shall not be required to receive any vaccination or to provide proof of any other form of immunization or negative laboratory tests for certain purposes, to prohibit certain discrimination, to define terms, to provide for certain exemptions, providing severability, and declaring an emergency.
House Bills 577, 578, 579, 580, 581, 582, 583, 584, 585, 586, 587, 588, 589, 590, 591, 592, 593, 594, 595, 596, 597, 598, 599, 600, 601, 602, 603, and 604 will all be referred to the Judiciary Rules Administration Committee for printing. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 10th order of business, second reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 10th order.
February 10, 2022, House Concurrent Resolution 31 by State Affairs Committee regarding Idaho Falls bandits, and House Bill 559 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding confined animal feeding operations.
Speaker, take a privilege, speaking of the Idaho Falls bandits. We're glad to see the good lady from District 33 here and in one piece. So, thank you. Ours not in one piece. Those can be replaced, but you, good lady, cannot be replaced. And so we're happy to see you here. House Concurrent Resolution number 31 and House Bill 559 will be filed for the third reading. The House will now advance to the 11th order of business, third reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 11th order. Gentleman from 14.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that House Bill, the first two, House Bill 481 and House Bill 505, hold their place on the third reading calendar one legislative day.
Without objection, so ordered. The House will now have under consideration House Bill number 521. Good lady from District 31.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask the unanimous consent of the body that we dispense with further reading of House Bill 521.
You've heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the lady has the floor to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On January 22nd, 1973, the Supreme Court handed down their decision in Roe versus Wade. Within a number of weeks, the state of Idaho codified part of that decision in what became Section 18608. This language includes a list of reasons that they believed it was appropriate to terminate a first or second trimester pregnancy, which reasons include stigma, psychological harm or stress, potential stress, the fact that the child is unwanted, or an opinion that that child would force upon the mother a distressful life and future. This language is outdated. It's no longer applicable. I don't believe that it reflects the values of the state of Idaho at this time. And so this cleanup bill carefully removes that language without impacting the remaining statute. So with that, I urge your support for House Bill 521.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Lady from 18.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
For.
Thank you. I understand that the intent is to simply remove perhaps inoperative language. But looking at the language in here, I think there is some language in here that specifically carves out some of the considerations that physicians are to consider, but it also provides some insulation from civil liability on the part of physicians that perform abortions. And I don't see that language residing elsewhere in this section of code. And so I'm concerned that this bill actually may be, in an operative fashion, removing liability protections that physicians would otherwise enjoy. So for that reason, I would urge your no vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, will the lady stand and close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In response to the concern from the good lady from 18, I would urge anyone who's concerned to look at Title 18609, which is titled Physicians and Hospitals Not to Incur Civil Liability, Consent to Abortion. So the changes that we are making here do not affect that. They are timely, and I, again, do believe that this is not reflective of the values of our state. So I would urge your support.
Thank you. Debate is closed. The question before us is, shall House Bill number 521 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine, and the members will record their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. Oh. Before the clerk locks the machine, she will read the pairs.
Critchfield votes aye. Green votes nay.
Now the vote count can be locked, and it shows 56 in favor, 12 against, with 2 absent. House Bill number 521 has passed the House and be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill number 509. Good gentleman from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the further reading of House Bill 509.
Without objection, the gentleman has the floor to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. This bill increases the food tax credit for all eligible Idaho residents from $100 to $120, and for all eligible Idaho seniors from $120 to $140 to help ensure that the credit remains commensurate with the rising cost of food. For a family of 4, this bill provides sales tax relief for $8,000 of food purchased annually, and with the additional $32 million in credit, provides for just under $200 million of annual ongoing tax relief for Idaho citizens. With that, I ask your green light and we'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Gentleman from 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this morning, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced a 7.5% January to January national inflation rate. Bloomberg News noted that the mountain states are an inflation hotspot. Inflation at 9%. Our decisions and our economy has changed. And a 20% adjustment to the grocery tax credit in 2 years doesn't address the problem and really doesn't do anything. Idahoans need inflation relief, not $20 in 2 years. In the last year, let's look at what a 9% inflation rate means. A person making $50,000 in 2020 without a raise is going to make $45,500 in 2021. And that same inflation issue goes throughout our economy. There is a ripple effect. The CPI reports that groceries, the grocery subsection, rose nationwide 7% in the last year. They didn't have a figure for the mountain states. They didn't break it down that far. That means that our government needs to take actions which address inflation and the inflation burden that is coming upon all of us, especially this year. It's not going away. That's pretty obvious. And that means having meaningful tax relief on our food, addressing the homeowners exemption, and not borrowing any more money. We should be repealing or suspending the tax on food during these inflationary times, not buying helicopters. It's time to suspend or simply repeal this grocery tax and the entire program. I hope that this body decides to take real, meaningful action. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 34.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to debate against the bill. Read the bill. Read it carefully. The emergency clause, the effectiveness date of this is for fiscal year 2023, not fiscal year, tax year 2023. And so the $20 tax credit per individual applies to 2023 taxes, which you, of course, report in 2024. You're looking at 2 years out before you get the paltry $20 tax credit off of your income tax. We have a $2 billion surplus. It'll probably be higher than that by the time the projections, by the time all the revenues come in. This $30 million tax credit is breadcrumbs compared to the amount of money sitting in the state coffers. As the good gentleman from 17 said, 9% inflation, 9% inflation, and we're going to offer $20 2 years out, and that is meeting the needs of Idaho families. Are you kidding me? This is insulting to families whose hard work created this surplus. In the JFAC committee, for the past few weeks, we've been entreated with public agencies coming to JFAC and reporting on what's going on in their agencies, what their budgets are, and what they need. It is a laundry list. It is a Christmas list of wants from the different agencies. On the JFAC committee, many members of JFAC praise them for their good work. They praise the agencies and the bureau leaders for the good work they're doing. But what we don't hear is praise for the hard work that families are doing all across this state. This budget surplus is not the result of agency work, it's the result of families working hard for their incomes. JFAC, the bureaus, request more and more. The taxpayer is the forgotten man and woman in this. We need to remember the forgotten man and woman who are working hard to create incomes and are falling further and further behind because inflation is taking away the purchasing power of their dollars. We can do better than this. We need to give the money back instead of spending it up. It is the taxpayer's money. Grocery tax credits are clunky. They're uneven. Some people get more than they deserve because they didn't pay that much in taxes for food. Some get less than they deserve because they spent more on food. They're delayed, that you pay it to government, you wait until the tax year's over, then you report your income, and then the tax credit comes in. It's delayed, it's uneven, and it creates a competitive disadvantage for our retailers who are in border communities with states. 5 of the states surrounding Idaho do not tax food at all. One, that state to the south, which shall not be named, taxes food at half the rate Idaho does. None of the other states touching Idaho tax food at all. Why are we the last ones? We're only one of 7 states to tax food at all. We're one of only 7 states that tax food fully. We have the 3rd highest tax on food in the country. It is time to remember the taxpayer. It's time to free the food. Mr. Speaker, I move that we send House Bill 509 to general order so we can add full grocery tax repeal to it. Add on to it.
Oh, pardon me. We have a motion to send House Bill 509 to general orders. Is there debate? Lady from 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did not realize that this bill, or I guess that the current bill that we're sending to general orders is only giving $20, and we're going to sell this as a tax relief to our citizens. It's lame. So I say we send it to general orders, we put the grocery tax repeal in that, and then people can actually get a real relief. So I think it's a great idea, and I don't know that I can go back to my district, my new district, and say, yeah, I'm going to give you $20 in tax relief in 2 years. That's lame. So I'd like to see this go to general orders and add some a real grocery tax repeal on it.
Is there further debate? Chapter 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I think that what's happened in the last month, and particularly this morning, is so important that we do need to really study and get some ideas out on the table, and it sounds to me like general orders would be a good place to do that. We have an inflation problem. I mean, my view is a little bit different than the good gentleman who made the motion, but when you have an inflation problem, you got to address it, and you got to address it now, and not postpone indefinitely a reaction. So I would hope that we would go to general orders. People would come up with their amendments, come up with their ideas, put them before the body. Let's come up with the best resolution. And I want to say something else. I know the gentleman from 4 is a very sincere person, and he's sincere in bringing this bill. And I think all of us are. And I think all of us want to do best for our constituencies, what we can do. So I think there's a lot of good faith going around here. And let's put together our amendments. Let's talk about them. Let's debate them. If it takes an hour or 2 hours, so what? But let's come up with something that really addresses, at least from my perspective, and I think from some others, really addresses an issue that is here today, and that's 9% inflation in the Mountain States. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Bill 21.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak in favor of the motion. It wasn't but a couple of weeks ago that I had a constituent family come to me, and I know they have a full household. And the mother told me I would be shocked at how much they're spending a week on their groceries right now. They have 6 or 7 kids.